this is Teenuja from the Veganlovlie channel. Today's recipe is actually a request from one of our subscribers, Topher, who wanted a recipe combining okra with rice. So I thought of doing a biryani dish. So biryani is actually the way we say biryani in Mauritius, and it's a very popular dish that is liked by almost everyone I know. In fact, this dish originates from India, and we have our own version of it in Mauritius. So the Mauritian biryani is different in terms of spices, but even in Mauritius everyone has a slightly different way of preparing it. So what I'm going to show you today is a simplified and adapted version that will make it easier for you to try at home. So let's get started. I am using soya chunks, also known as TVP or textured vegetable protein, in this recipe. To rehydrate them, cover them with some water and bring to a gentle boil. Then cover and continue to boil for about 3 minutes or until the chunks are soft in the center. The gentle boiling not only rehydrates and removes the raw beany taste, but it also improves the texture, something that soaking alone does not do. What makes a biryani particularly exceptional is the rice, so use the best quality Basmati rice that you can find. Rinse the rice a couple of times in cold water until the water runs almost clear. Then add 2 cups of water. This won't be enough to completely cook the rice, so it will only be half cooked, which is what we want to achieve at this stage. Add 4 to 5 cardamom pods and 1 cinnamon stick. Then place the saucepan on medium heat and bring to a boil. Once water starts to boil, allow it to continue boiling for about 1 minute. Then turn off the heat and cover the pan. Leave aside as the rice absorbs all the water. Meanwhile, you can prepare the vegetables. The preferred way to cut the carrots for the Mauritian biryani is into julienne, but you can cut it in any way that you like. Try not to cut them into too small pieces, or they might become too soft when cooked. For the okra, discard the top part and cut them into 5 cm or 2 inches in length. Chilies add a lot of flavor, but if you cannot tolerate too much heat, then leave them whole or de-seed them, or just use a mild one. Biryani in Mauritius is really quite synonymous with celebration. Traditionally, this dish is served at many special occasions and gatherings: weddings, engagements, religious ceremonies, having guests at home, the New Year celebrations, office parties, or even just for a picnic at the beach. Yes, you would think that a picnic at the beach would call for light and easy meals, but for many families, spending a day at the seaside would also mean meeting relatives that they might not have seen for a while. So a big pot of biryani placed on a campfire was a highlight of the day. Those were the fascinating days of my childhood and teenage years. Typically, yogurt is used as the gravy base in this dish. However, my version here calls for coconut milk and tamarind paste instead. To remove the seeds from the tamarind paste, soak it in a little warm water and smoosh the pulp between your fingers. Then just scoop out the seeds and fibers with your fingers and squeeze them in your hand to drain out all the liquid. I actually have a more explicit video on how to do this if you want to check it out by clicking on the info icon at the top right. One of the characteristics of the Mauritian biryani is the addition of fried potatoes. White or red potatoes are a good choice. So peel and cut them into 5 cm or 2 inch cubes. Then add 1 tablespoon of turmeric powder. Toss to mix until potatoes are well coated. To cook the biryani, choose a deep, thick bottom pot which has a lid that seals properly. Now let's start by frying the potatoes. Heat 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil on medium-high temperature and add in the potatoes. Stir, mix and let cook while stirring every now and then until potatoes are cooked up to 75% with a crispy coating. Remove and set aside. In the same pan, still on medium-high temperature, heat another tablespoon of oil. Add in the pre-boiled soya chunks followed by half teaspoon of ground cumin and 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. Fry the soya while stirring occasionally. Some people find soya chunks too chewy for their liking, but very often it comes down to how these are being prepared. Pre-boiling the soya chunks improves their texture, and then frying with just a little oil at a relatively high temperature firms up the texture and adds a slightly crispy coating that dissipates much of the chewiness. So once they have that crispy coating, remove them from the pan and set aside. Now let's start making the gravy. Heat 1 tablespoon of coconut or vegetable oil on medium-high temperature. Then add 1 tablespoon of mixed ginger and garlic paste. Let it sizzle for about 30 seconds, then add in half of the onions. Let this sweat for about 2 minutes, then add the cumin powder followed by the garam masala and the coriander seed powder. Let the spices roast for about 5 seconds. Then add in the coconut milk and the diluted tamarind paste. By the way, if you don't have tamarind, you can substitute it with 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Next, add the cinnamon stick, stir and let the gravy thicken. This may take about 10 minutes depending on how thick the coconut milk is. Once the gravy is almost paste-like, add half of the chopped coriander and half of the mint. Mix and add just a little water if the gravy is too thick. The mixture should not be too soupy though, but rather thick. Add the chilies and at this stage, turn off the heat before adding in the fried potatoes and soya. Mix well with the spice gravy, then add in the raw okra and carrots. I prefer not to pre-cook these as otherwise they will become too soft. So once everything is well mixed, we will proceed to layering the rice. So remove half of the vegetable mixture from the pot and set aside in a bowl. Spread the remaining vegetables evenly in the pot. Add a little salt. You can add more salt later as per your taste, in between each layer of rice and vegetables. Fluff the half-cooked rice to separate the grains. Then layer half of the rice on the vegetables in the pot. Spread the rice evenly to cover the vegetables. Add a layer of the remaining herbs, the coriander and the mint. Then top with a layer of the remaining vegetables. You can add a little salt at this stage and spread evenly. Before adding in the final layer of rice, add a teaspoon of turmeric powder to the rice and mix it thoroughly so that the grains are coated. They don't need to be evenly coated. In fact, it is good to have grains of various tints of orange and yellow. Now add the rice in the pot and spread evenly to cover the vegetables. Top with the green peas and add 3/4 cup of water poured evenly around. Cover and start cooking on medium heat. As soon as some steam starts to form, lower the heat and cook for about 12 minutes only, as most of the ingredients are already pre-cooked. While the biryani is cooking, you can fry the onions for a final touch to this dish. In a skillet, heat 1 tablespoon of oil on medium-high temperature and add in the onions. Fry while stirring occasionally until the onions are brown and caramelized. After you've turned off the heat for the biryani, add the fried onions on top of the rice. Then cover and let it stand for another 10 minutes before serving. Serve with a refreshing cucumber salad and assorted Indian pickles. While a biryani dish may look a little intimidating to make, it is neither more difficult nor time-consuming than a curry. It is the blend of spices and herbs that make the difference, and the rest is basically just layering the rice to cook everything in one pot. So we hope you've enjoyed this recipe, and by the way, you can get the recipe in text format on our website at veganlovlie.com. The link is in the description below the video. If you do try this recipe, don't forget to send us a picture on our social media. Bon appétit and see you soon for another recipe.